7 nominations at this year's Academy Awards, including the very coveted Best Picture of the Year. The film's director, Kenneth Branagh, broke an Oscar record of his own that we'll talk about, and the whole movie is based on his own boyhood growing up in Northern Ireland. Let's talk about Belfast. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the recent film Belfast. It's getting obviously a lot of Oscar buzz, and we're going to talk about all of that, the movie's chances that I think at the Oscars, what my particular review of the film is, and of course at the end of the video, stay tuned for my grade for this movie. And in addition, I've done almost all the big Oscar movies so far in review form, so we'll put a couple of links there at the end of the video as well. You can click on those if you want to see some of my other Oscar watch videos. But let's talk first, before we even get into this specific movie, let's talk about what I said about the director here, Kenneth Branagh, and his Oscar record with these nominations coming out. This guy's having a great week. I have not seen Death on the Nile yet, but it debuted at #1. He is the star of that as Detective Poirot, and I'm going to review that pretty soon, I hope. But the same week the Oscar nominations came out, that movie came out and went to #1. So he's having a great week. But let me tell you about these awards. So he is nominated himself in 3 different categories for Belfast. Best Director, which he's been nominated in before. Best Picture, because he's a producer. That one is a new one for him. And then Best Original Screenplay is a new one for him as well. So, but he's been to the Oscar table many, many times. Dating back to 1989, his debut was in Henry V. He was nominated for Best Director for that, his first time out. Best Director nomination, and then Best Actor as well. I think he's been nominated for that a couple of times. But then he's also been nominated in the Supporting Actor race with My Week with Marilyn, and live action short film as well for this movie, Swan Song. And then also his 96 version of Hamlet got him an adapted screenplay nomination. So that's the 7. Previously, the record was a tie. Walt Disney, which some of the things he's been nominated in don't even exist anymore, because back in the day they had like differentiations for black and white and color nominations and stuff like that. So he's been nominated in some categories that don't even exist anymore. And then George Clooney, our good buddy, he's been nominated, believe it or not, in 6 of the categories. Argo, I think he produced, that was his Best Picture nomination. He's been nominated in the 2 acting categories as well, and perhaps one of the screenplays, and maybe Best Director too, I'm not sure. Maybe for The Descendants. Anyway, he's been nominated 6 times. Branagh now 7 nominations to his name, or well, more than that, but 7 different categories that he's been nominated for. So that's pretty wild. And certainly we wish him luck. He seems like a nice guy. But let's talk about this particular movie, because it is basically his childhood story. They don't call the kid Kenneth or anything, but his name is Buddy. Jude Hill plays him, and he's a 9-year-old kid growing up in Belfast. And this movie is all about the conflict going on in the late 60s, the beginning of what's called the Troubles, and his family dynamic, his love of music and movies, and the magic of the movies and all of that. And this is a very stylized movie. Branagh decided to film it in black and white, but it tricks you at first, because I thought it was in black and white, and the first like minute and a half or so, they're showing all of these color sequences of, lush things, in the town and streets and people, having a great time and all of this. And as we sort of peer over the wall, it goes to black and white, and we see what is really going on. And it was a brilliant, brilliant way to start this movie off. And I also want to say, before I really dive in, that I watched this movie twice. I think it's the only movie nominated for Best Picture this year that I have seen so far twice. I believe that's true. But I watched it. I paid the $20 to like rent it on demand. And so I watched it, and then about a week later, I still hadn't done my review yet, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it again. Just to make sure I know everything I want to say about this movie. And it was just as good the second time. So some of the other names in this movie, and actually some of the other nominations, Judi Dench was nominated here as Buddy's grandmother, but you also have Jamie Dornan, who plays Pa, Katarina Balfi, I don't know her, but she plays Ma, and a lot of, classically trained Irish actors and actresses in this movie portraying, the relatives and the neighbors and other people in Buddy's life. So right away we get into, the story of the troubles and what's going on, and Buddy is in danger immediately. Pa works overseas in England, so he is only sort of, half present, and they have to decide, what to do. Do they stay in Belfast, or do they move on to try and, find some more safety? So the black and white is great. I love a good black and white movie. In fact, I've mentioned this a few times on my channel, but The Sound of Metal, which was my #1 movie of 2020, the second and third time I watched it, I actually turned the color off on my TV so I could watch it in black and white, because I really think it gives you a sort of a different vibe to a movie. And I think Branagh knew what he was doing in that regard with putting this in black and white. And when I first watched it, part of an issue I had was, well, they don't really dive too far into the whole situation, the political strife, and the troubles as they're known. And then the more I thought about it before I even watched it the second time, I realized, okay, well, actually, why would they? Because this whole movie is from Buddy's perspective. He is 9 years old. He cares about going to the movies and what he gets for Christmas. And by the way, one of the presents we see under the Christmas tree is an Agatha Christie book. I think maybe that was a nod to Branagh's other, acting gig at the moment, because he already did one of the Agatha Christie movies a few years ago. So I thought that was kind of a cute little touch. Didn't notice that till my second viewing, but I thought that was cool. But anyway, so it makes sense that we wouldn't dive that far in. Yes, he's overhearing some conversations, but a 9-year-old, doesn't really know what kind of trouble is going on in the world, even in their world, a lot of the time. And we've seen that example in countless movies. Boy in the Striped Pajamas comes to mind immediately. Big tearjerker there. But I thought the black and white was a brilliant choice. Also, the music. I'm not a huge Van Morrison fan. All I really know is Brown Eyed Girl, which I think is one of the most overrated songs of all time. But he is, classic Northern Ireland musician. I don't know if he's specifically from Belfast, but he's from Northern Ireland. And this movie is the Van Morrison music video show. I mean, he is the entire soundtrack, I think. There's some score, but in terms of, actual soundtrack music, it's, I think, all Van Morrison. And the songs really sort of accented where we were. Now, the songs aren't mostly as old as 69, but Van Morrison was making records. So I think they're all sort of from the 60s and 70s Van Morrison archive, which I appreciated. They're, really put us, at least to put me in that sort of zone and in that mindset of, that time period. And then the love of the movies. We they go to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in this, and we see, some fun scenes there. And he is a movie lover, this kid. And we've seen that a few times in movies before as well, kids who are obsessed with the movies. But there is something about the wide-eyed nature of this particular kid. Jude Hill, like I said, plays him. That and especially knowing too that it's based on Kenneth Branagh's life, it took me to a different place than I think a lot of other movies have tried to do. And so let's talk about this kid, because he gives, for me, one of the best acting performances of the year. This is a tough year, I think, for acting nominees, but I think actresses have it a little tougher because there are so many good actress performances. Actors, I think there's some good ones and some great ones, but I don't think there's quite as many really, superior performances from the male side of things as there are this year on the women's side. And traditionally, the Oscars don't really reward young actors and actresses. The last really young person I can remember getting an acting nod is Quvenzhané Wallis when she was in Beasts of the Southern Wild, and that was probably at this point 9 years ago, maybe even more. So they just typically overlook things like this, and it's sad because Belfast got all of these nominations, and I think he could have been in the conversation. He is a great little actor, and then also some of the other family members. Yeah, it's great that Judi Dench was nominated, but you could have nominated Buddy's grandfather. I think did get a nomination. Cheyenne Hines. I do think he got nominated, but the mother could have been nominated. Again, that would have probably been for supporting. So there's less argument there about the actresses in supporting as there are with the lead actresses this year. She could have been put in, I think, and probably should have. But the directing nomination absolutely deserved. The screenplay nomination absolutely deserved. I did not cry at this movie. I thought maybe I would based on the subject matter, and especially watching it the second time, knowing everything that happens. I thought maybe I would, shed a tear or two, but I didn't. But I definitely did feel the power of this movie, and more than that, the passion that Branagh has behind the lens. And of course, he's no stranger to the directing chair. As I mentioned, he got nominated his first time out for Best Director. So overall, this is, for me, one of the best movies of the year. I think it definitely deserves to be in the conversation. I think it is one of the frontrunners for Best Picture. So you may see it winning at the big show. I don't know about director. I think that's a little bit of a tougher race, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if he picked up a directing trophy. And screenplay, I think it's probably one of the front runners there as well. So I think come Oscars, we're going to hear more about Belfast. For me, again, one of the best movies of the year. Not quite as good as, say, West Side Story for me, which is my A+. But I do leave Belfast with an A. It's probably in my top 5 of the year. Really, really great movie. And I do hope that it wins some of the awards in a few weeks' time. So thank you for watching. Like I said, check out some of these other Oscar nomination videos below there. You can click on those links and just head on over to those. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.